G'day and welcome to the Retirement Concepts podcast where we discuss both lifestyle and financial issues in retirement to help you understand them. And this is us, Pete. We are live.
Okay, I'll just finish what I'm doing. Done.
We are live, so
There we go.
mate, we're in a different
So
spot.
what would you like to talk about today?
We're in a different spot today, aren't we?
Yeah, we were.
We're here at the Bella Vista Hotel in the podcast studio. So we are here because we figured we'd change it up and actually sit in an actual real podcasting studio. So if we look over there, we've got the camera over here. So keep an eye on the front of the shot and we'll get into it. So today, welcome back to the Retirement Concepts podcast. I'm Lionel O'Malley from Purpose Planning, Financial Planner, and I'm joined in my co-host, Peter Graham from Redefining Retirement. How are you going, Pete?
Yeah, I'm going well. Busy as always, and that's the way it should be.
How do you find time filling your days in your ripe age of 80? Tell me.
Well, there's plenty of activities that keep me busy, not the least of which is writing blogs and doing articles and preparing talks and presentations and so on. And that's one of the things that I do a lot of is giving presentations live to groups. So if you've got any groups that you'd like me to talk to, let me know and I'll help you out. So I'm pretty well busy most of the day. I don't waste too much time.
Yeah. And topic that we wanted to speak about today was probably the start of the journey of the retirement piece, which is obviously wealth accumulation and accumulating wealth. So I wanted to start there because that's the journey that you start on before you're actually even thinking about retiring. And I just wanted to touch on a few key things that if you're a younger audience thinking about this phase, then maybe you should be taking a note of some of them. And we're going to be talking about like a journey in life, like talking about the wealth accumulation years in that phase of life, what's important to do early on, the effects of like compound interest, and also referring to one of the books that I've recently read which is called Die with Zero. So Pete, your journey of life, it's been a journey so far, I'd imagine. What was some of the key things that if you were to go back in time and the things that you've learnt over your life, what are the two key messages that you'd give the younger generation coming through of what they should be doing with their finances for one, but then also for their life?
Well, I think one of the most important things that people can do is to take advice. And you take advice from people who know more than you do. So you don't take it from your neighbour unless they're qualified to give so, or you don't take it from a dinner table discussion or down at the hotel or whatever else. You must formally learn to take advice from properly qualified people. And if you do that, your life becomes a lot easier. And that can start very early in the piece, just talking even simple finance matters. The best people to talk to are obviously financial advisors like Lionel, but also accountants and mortgage brokers and people like that who can help you understand what it's all about. So that's the first point. And the second point I'd suggest that young people think about is that they never give up. Because a lot of people go so far and not quite far enough. And we see that in life, that those people who keep pushing tend to do better than the people who just give up because it's got a little bit difficult on one day. So my 2 points would be to take advice and never give up.
Yeah, some great advice. And because it's someone that's had the experience so far, that's why I don't take that advice lightly as well, because you've been there, you've done it, you've been through your wealth accumulated years and you're into your retirement years now. So it's always great listening to words of wisdom, and that's what Peter Graham has plenty of. So, and I don't think people really understand how privileged we are as well to actually hear the wisdom, Pete. Like for me as myself, Peter and I have been on this journey, writing a book together, meeting up regularly for coffee and talking about the retirement phase. And yeah, I want to say how privileged I am to be able to have a great relationship with you, Pete, and also learn a lot from you as well. Like I'm learning, but then it's the benefit of the people that are around me and my clients that actually.
Okay, well, let me just say something now, and that is that I chose to work with you simply because Lionel didn't want to pretend that he understood the lifestyle issues in retirement. Too many financial advisors tend to think they know about the lifestyle issues, and they don't, and pretend that that's good enough. What we've done is to separate the two components, the lifestyle issues and the financial issues. And there are two separate components. They work with each other, but they're still separate. So I'm working with you simply because you're one of the few advisors who have accepted the fact that your speciality is financial advice and that you want to work with somebody who has retirement living as a speciality as well. So that's why we're working together.
Yeah, no, and I think we throw in there in the mix that I think we spoke about this quite a lot is the $1 Million Roundtable MDRT group that we're a part of really sort of solidifies the relationship because in the MDRT world and the group, it's everyone really wants to help each other out and work together and help each other and see each other's success come through and help out a mate where you can as well. So that covers all the regions all across the world really, and it really comes together when we all come together on our big annual meeting, which is in America on a yearly basis. So, well, that's nice to hear, Pete. But I wanted to talk about the wealth accumulation phase of life. So usually it all starts really at a really young age that you're actually building your mindset and the type of person that you are when you're early on. Unfortunately, these days, they don't teach us about money in school. And that's probably a pretty heavily criticized area that I would say that most teachers don't really want to talk about. But us as the finance experts, we see it pretty evidently these days when people they've gone to school to learn to read and write and do mathematics and thereabouts, but they haven't learned anything about money. When they spend 75% of their whole life needing to know about money. Mm. So I find it pretty appalling that, it's not in the school system. So podcasts like this and educators like us as advisors, we are trying to educate as many people as we can to help people understand all the different mechanics of money. Because if you can get a grasp of money, and obviously one thing is making it is the first point, but also if you're making it, and then these days that we see a lot of time with the younger clients these days coming through, is that they're really good at spending it. It's because they haven't really been through many hard times, especially of recent in the last probably say 15, 20 years. There's been a couple of really significant downturns, but there hasn't been any really despair. Like anything that probably of your childhood. How was your childhood growing up, and what was money like?
Still after that, but we all had parents in my day that taught us how to save money. That was a money box, and it was a saving account at the Commonwealth Bank or whatever the case may be. But it did help us understand that if you want to do anything nice at simply Christmas or any other event, you had to save the money during the year to get there. It wasn't going to suddenly appear because you wanted it. Now, unfortunately, in this day and age, the money can suddenly appear. It's usually called credit card debt, but nobody thinks about repaying it. So it's far better to save money rather than borrow money, because borrowing has a huge negative attached to it. And that is that if the borrower ever wants the money back, you have to pay it back. If you haven't got it, you're in trouble. So turn the thinking around, save money so that you have enough money for whatever you're doing. be that the long term, such as retirement, or even the short term of saving for a car or saving for some clothes or whatever the case may be. It's far better to save than it is to put things on credit and borrowed money.
Yeah, so that's a great point to make. And we talk about that a lot with our kids now. I've got 2 boys and a girl, and we've been drumming it into them for a long time that don't spend your money on something that's going to be, you're not going to use the next day.
That's right. And
if you're not going to use it.
One of the big problems as we get on is most people do not have a money problem. They have a spending problem. That's their problem. In other words, the money's there, maybe from earnings or investments or assets or inheritance or whatever the case may be, but it's the habit of spending that brings people unstuck, not the amount of money and when it comes in. Unfortunately, if they haven't learned the habit of saving money as it comes in, then they will always have a problem with spending.
Exactly right. The spending problem is a big thing these days because everyone wants to spend money just to, like they say, to keep up with the Joneses. And the social media phase that's coming through, that is here and that's evident, that's in our face. People just want to spend money to really look cool.
Instant satisfaction. That's what
instant satisfaction, yeah. And those dollars that you spend early on that you could have saved really take a massive impact on your overall wealth long term. Like I know that people that have bought houses early on in their early 20s have bought it at a significant lower value, but then when people that are in their 30s now that are looking to go and buy their first house, the value of those houses have sometimes doubled or tripled. So their entry price into the market is a lot higher with the values, and then that means you've got a lot higher debt side of things. So that's crazy.
Well, it is crazy. And you earlier on, you mentioned the magic of compound interest. And that's in simple terms, and I'm sure Lionel's got his way of explaining it, but if you've got $100 for some clothes and you don't spend it but you save it, that 100 every 6 years, 7 years or so, if invested correctly, will double. So at the end of 7 years, you'll have 200. Next to the 7 next year, you'll have 400, then 800, then 1,600, 3,200, 6,000, so on and so forth. In other words, it compounds rapidly if you put it aside and invest it. And there are so many things that we buy that we just throw out. If we can think when we buy things and cut down our spending, then that will mean that there's money to save. And save it. Don't just put it away and hold there in case I find something I like. Actually go and save it, and your life will be a lot happier as you get older.
Because when you save it, it's there for when you need it as well, or a big purchase or something that's going to give you a lot more long-term success. Spending money, they talk about avocado on toast, which is a really expensive breakfast type thing, which is standard these days. But just going out and blowing money at the pub or the bar or on just unnecessary rubbish throughout your earlier years of your teens and your 20s, if you can save those monies and invest it wisely, you're going to have a lot more money long term. So, yeah, I use the example of compound interest as like using the snowball effect of rolling down the hill with your money. So obviously the longer you have in the downhill, which is years, the bigger the snowball is going to be at the bottom of the hill when you get to the time that you're actually going to need it. For example, when you're investing money inside your super account, you can't actually touch the money until you're at least 60 years old. So if you're concentrated on your money and you're putting a little bit of money earlier on in your 20s, all right, and putting the money into the super account and investing it correctly, and you're letting that snowball build up pretty decently by your 30, well, then the next 30 years from 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, it's going to be a massive snowball effect when you get to the end of the hill when you're going to use it in retirement. So, but those people that are starting later in their years to actually accumulate their money in retirement, for example, in their late 40s or just their early 50s, they've only got a shorter period of time for that money to make money for you. But when you've got a longer period of time to actually make money earlier on and let that snowball grow, then it's going to be a lot more money long term. Now, the beauty of superannuation these days is that your employer at current present this financial year, 2024, 25, are actually putting in 11.5% of your wage into super for you. And it's going to 12% next year. So a lot of people like your day, Pete, you never had any super contribution. Just how privileged are people these days to have employer super contributions? It's going to make a massive effect.
It will make a massive difference. But on that compound interest, can I offer the viewers a suggestion? You've got Lionel's details. They're included underneath this podcast. Ask Lionel to give you an example of what happens if you start saving now, so let's say 20 years, and then start saving in 10 years' time for 10 years, 20 years in both the examples, same amount of money, same interest rate, and he will show you the massive difference. Now, we can tell you, but it won't make any difference. If you see it, it will make a huge difference to you. So I'd encourage you to contact Lionel and ask him to give you those calculations.
Yeah, the projections that we do for clients are pretty amazing sometimes, and you can see the big difference from where they would have ended up if they stayed on the same trajectory compared to where they are going to potentially be after the advice and after the small, slight changes that we can do to give you financial advice. Now, one of the things that I wanted to speak about, Pete, was I read a book called Die with Zero. It's talking about a guy that wants to either give all his money away or actually do experiences at the right point in time of his life. For example, when you're younger and you're thinking about traveling, all right, your travel experience at the age of 20 compared to the age of 50, it's going to be a complete different experience. So at the point in time when you're having those experiences at 20 and you're spending the money, which may feel like a lot of money at that point in time, you're actually creating dividends in memory dividends, they call it. So you're actually enjoying having a good time at that point in time when you're going on like a overseas holiday or something like that. So we talk about that with a few people about, because most people when they get to retirement phase, they either have enough money or they don't have enough money. But some people that have too much money, they're never going to spend it. Then we're trying to tell people of how to go and spend it wisely and give it away when you need to give it away. So, but yeah, Die with Zero is a great book if you haven't read it.
Well, if I can make a suggestion, that's what I want to do. And I've lived that to a point, not totally, but I've lived it to a point. For example, when my parents died, my mother was the last survivor. In her will, I said to her, Mum, I'd like you to change the beneficiaries. Oh, I can't do that, she said. I said, well, look, why don't you give my share to my children, your grandchildren? Just give the money to them, cut me out of it, and she said, well, why? And I explained it to it, and she did it. So I didn't get the inheritance that I was entitled to, but my children got it. And that was an absolute fantastic start for them in their early midlife. Suddenly they had enough money to finish paying for a house and finish doing the things that they wanted to do. And now they're quite reasonably off simply because they got that input of money from that source. Now, I've survived. It didn't bother me all that much, to tell you the truth. Not that I've got a lot of money. I've got enough, but I didn't need to have another extra $500,000 or $1 million or whatever the case may be. So the concept of dying with zero is to make certain that you do not have a huge accumulation of money when you die, that you'll perhaps distribute it to your family or distribute it to charities, or you've lessened your actual assets so that you do not have this huge inheritance when you die. So I gave it to my children when they needed it, and they have been so grateful for it. Doesn't matter. And I'd suggest that one of the things that you can do when you're thinking about dying with zero, the next one to do is to buy the book.
Yeah, buy the book, the Little Book of Retirement Concepts. But yeah, I find that when you're getting money at the right time to help you take off the burden of the stress burden of financial burden, then it's going to make a massive difference to yourself long term. So if you have the ability to do so, then we definitely encourage you to do it while you're able, because you don't want to leave it to chance with the retirement and with the estate planning side of it, because estate planning usually is random people receiving random amounts of money at random times, because if it ends up in the estate, then more than likely your family are going to be fighting over it anyway.
That's right.
So give it away while you can to the people that you want to give it away.
That's right.
In the right amounts.
And what I've done is I've taken my own advice and sought advice from legal people, and I have myself structured in such a way that when I die, I've got $5 here somewhere, and that's it, because it's all in these structures behind the scenes. And I don't have anything as far as day-to-day assets. I've got an income stream which is sufficient to live on, but I don't have an accumulation of wealth that I have to look after. So with proper planning, using people like Lionel, accountants, lawyers and the like, you can structure your life so that you have a very, very pleasant retirement with plenty of money that you don't have to worry about the balance.
And I think that's a pretty good snapshot of information that people can listen to. So we'll leave it there with that one. So hopefully you've enjoyed that podcast episode. If you like it, please share it with your friends and your family. Subscribe to our Little Book of Retirement Concepts page, which is on Facebook and also on Instagram. And also we want to say thanks to the Bella Vista Hotel for hosting us today. It's been great.
It's been good. Cheers. So long.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Retirement Concepts podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to let people know by sharing the episode around, rating and reviewing the podcast on the platform you listen on. Also, if you need some guidance on preparing for retirement, please head over to our website lbrc.au to grab a copy of our Little Book of Retirement Concepts that brings you closer to having a fabulous retirement. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.